Welcome to Ask the Expert on Contingent Workforce Strategies LinkedIn group. I'm Jeff Nugent, and this is the #1 LinkedIn group talking about all things contingent workforce and talent. And we have a really special guest, first and foremost, but a really cool topic. And it's so applicable in the world today where there's skills gaps and skills shortages, and we're needing to change our mindset on talent. And so got Ceaneh Alexis here to talk about talent management best practices and the real shift in the swing from just, you know, talent acquisition. And if we don't have the skills, we'll just find skills to talent management and managing the skills a lot better within organizations as opposed to just this, in and out with talent acquisition. So, Ceaneh, it's amazing that you've joined us today on this conversation. Ceaneh, you have thank you. And if for those that don't know Ceaneh, she's got over 25 years of experience, 15 in the talent and the contingent workforce management space, an MBA from Notre Dame University. She's worked at like some of the top companies in the world, managing either talent acquisition, talent management, or their contingent programs. And now she's the founder of Catapult, which is a workforce advisory and business transformation consultancy firm. And so thank you for coming on today and talking about talent management best practices and this real shift that we're starting to see in mindset.
Jeff, thanks for having me. I'm so excited about this discussion. We're going to have a lot of fun.
So, I kind of introduced it, and we know the problem, right? This whole idea of either skills gaps or talent shortages or skill shortages within organizations. And, some of it is demographics, some of it is other reasons, but there's more to it than that. So what are some of the main causes and reasons that you're seeing in the market today around what's causing the skills gap or the skill shortages with a lot of organizations?
Yeah, so there's a variety of opinions on this, but I'm seeing four key trends. One of the reasons is just the advancement of technology. Technology is evolving so fast, our talent cannot keep up. There are new things coming up constantly. So we just have to keep reskilling and upskilling. I think the other trend, and this could be US based and global as well, but we have a big exodus of the baby boomers from the industry. So a lot of knowledge is leaving as they are retiring and moving on to greater things. And then the other thing I would say is companies over the years have moved away from investing in their talent to just finding talent. So back in the day, companies would invest in your talent. You hire a company, you work there forever, you retire. There was all these development programs, and then companies decide, well, I'm not going to waste that time because talent is moving. I'll just go find them. So no one is investing, but everyone is searching. Hence, people are not getting the development they need in order to keep up. So those are some of the key trends that we have been seeing from a skills gap standpoint.
Yeah, it's so interesting how, everybody and every executive always talks about talent being the heart of their company and their biggest differentiator. But you're right, the investment in managing or growing people tended to really shrink over
Mm-hmm.
time. And we understand economic cycles happen, and there's this idea of shareholder value and that whole idea around maximizing your enterprise value by just lowering your expenses. And first thing you can cut is things that don't, seem like they have an immediate ROI. And that's that
Right.
immediate thought process that often gets us in trouble when you have to start to think long term. And guess what? Developing talent is not something that happens overnight. And so,
Correct.
yeah, it's interesting. The conversation is not only demographic, and it's actually the nice thing is the demographics have caused this to be top of the
Right.
conversation, but it's also been self-inflicted by lack
Yeah.
of focus on this topic, right? So it's so great to talk to you about it. Um, you know, the the trends in addressing the skills gaps and needs, there's the just in time, minimize your cost at all costs, enterprise value mindset, but we're needing to shift to be more strategic, right? And think about
Yeah.
it longer term. And in some cases, I know industries have, like industry players and associations have had to come together and start to talk about this and invest in it as a whole, and be more strategic about um, how you create, bring in the talent to do your business day to day. So, what are some of the key trends you're starting to see in this whole manage your talent versus just in and out and just in time talent?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest, I would say, things you hear is all the unfilled jobs, right? We have all these jobs we can't fill, so there's a gap. Yes, I think there's a gap for some of the reasons we mentioned, but I think organizations should be introspective as well. Have you read some of the job descriptions that are out there? I think there's two key things. One, they don't know what they need, or two, they can't articulate what they need to attract the right people. So I think it's not all on the talent and we can't upskill. I think it's a two-way thing as well. And some of the strategies that they're using in order to make sure they have the right talent for the future, there's a lot of apprenticeship programs that are coming up. So the key trend to solving the gap is reskilling, upskilling, or talent development or management, which are the key trends. And the things I'm going to talk about are going to fall in that bucket. But the big thing we're seeing on the US side is apprenticeship. So apprenticeships are not new. I mean, they date back to ancient Egypt, so they're not a new thing, but they've been mostly around the trades and trades area. But in the last, I'll say 2000s, they have surged in the US as a way to address and build the talent pool that we kind of need for a variety of reasons, whether it's the skills, whether it's the technology. I think on the US side, not so much globally, the value of the 4-year degree, it's kind of diminishing. I think because employers, what they expect and what college and graduates offer are not always aligning. So they're trying to develop the talent pipeline that they need. Just a quick fact from the Department of Labor, I believe in the last 10 years, there's been a 300% increase in IT apprenticeships and a 600% increase in cybersecurity apprenticeship. So I mean, it's booming, and people are trying to figure out how can we build the talent pipeline for core skills that we need. I think the other trend that I'm seeing a lot of is really this whole coaching style of leadership and training middle managers on how to coach their employees beyond just managing. I think historically, if you think of coaching, think of executive coaching with the bigger firms, one-to-one, thousands of dollars. With the advancements in technology, there's platforms like BetterUp and Ezra, where have really democratized and access to coaching. So it's more people can get access to it at a lesser value, and companies are really pushing that and that along from that standpoint as well. And then the last piece is just really talent development. Training, development programs for existing talent. And there's also with technology, we're seeing a switch from more learning management platform to learning experience platform. Snazzy name, but it basically means customized learning for you. We live in an era where we love customization. I use Spotify, I get custom songs. I go to Amazon, I get recommendations. So these learning platforms, they provide custom learning paths and pathways and journeys based on your interest. The user experience is better. There's also social networking to it as well. So more and more companies are getting on to that. In fact, a lot of companies and staffing firms are starting to get on that to get their contingent workers ready for client-based work.
There's so much to unpack in what you just said. There are so many great ideas and thoughts and trends that are happening. The whole idea of changing the dynamic from more from the traditional resume that had a traditional education path, etc., to more skills based is so important. And then that whole idea of apprenticeship, where you're learning beside someone of your senior and you're using some learning tools,
Right.
but very customized learning tools. But that whole idea of an apprenticeship along someone that can transfer a lot of the unwritten knowledge that couldn't be in the employee guidebook, but it's learned out of experiences to transfer
Right.
that knowledge quicker in those apprenticeships. And like you say, the word apprenticeship traditionally had been in the trades
Mm-hmm.
and had a certain stigmatism to it, with it being more of a universal term now, where an apprenticeship could be on the sexiest new tech to
Right.
our program to the trades,
Yep.
which for a fact, there's a lot of needs in the trades these days that you can earn tons of money. I always try to plug the trades. Um, but that whole idea of having apprenticeship, whatever the job and whatever the skill set, so that you learn from your senior person or experienced people to help you learn faster to get job ready, is just incredible. And so I think that's so cool. And then that idea of the transformation of learning management, where you would have been sitting in a classroom of people that you're just getting very standard, you know, educational content versus customized to your level of experience and
Right.
knowledge, interests. You know, thank goodness for the advancements in technology that customize that based on, doing more day-to-day assessments of your
Mhm.
capabilities, so that they
Right.
take you on a different path and give you different education versus just generic learning management systems. So I think it's very exciting. And going back to why they hadn't invested in the past, the old way of doing things cost a lot. You'd
Right.
have a classroom of people off for a week, you paying their salaries, and you're kind of getting mediocre results. With the new way of working with apprenticeship and learning on the job, as well as these customized journey paths, it costing less to educate and get people ready for jobs quicker. So, thinking about that as a worthy investment is important for
Yeah,
organizations.
and I think we live in a world where we are all bombarded with all these data points. So I've worked at a lot of large companies. We have very robust learning management systems. There's so many courses. Half the time, I'm not sure which one to take. So having technology kind of sift through all that, and as they interact with you, they learn who you are and recommend. That actually makes the utilizations of those programs better. But as an organization, you also start to capture skills of the people in your org as well. So it's a win-win for both sides. The employee is getting development customized to them for opportunities they have to develop and also interest they have for the future. But you're also gathering, Ceaneh is doing this, she's building X, and it's also feeding into your skills-based strategy.
Yeah. And it's awesome that you call it's almost the Spotify of learning, right?
Yes,
And
I
skills
love
development.
Spotify, and it's amazing. I said I go to gym. I said create a workout list, and it's perfect. But
Yeah.
the more you interact, the better it gets. So you're kind of teaching it.
Yeah, for sure. And it helps you learn songs that I would have ever known before, because
Yes,
it's in the same genre, but just adjacent, let's call it, to the skill or the position that you're working in. It's adjacent to the type of genre of music that you like. So they test
right.
that out, and then you can decide, go forward and listen to it or not. It's really cool. So, there's tactical best practices that are enabling these orgs. And I think we talked about a bunch of them. Um, and really, what are some of the obstacles though? So I think, having these best practices and such innovation now happening in the talent management space, and it's required as a business need, because we have so many unfilled jobs, and you can see companies are not able to move forward in their businesses as much as they'd like, because of the lack of skills and lack of talent to get the work done. What are some of the obstacles, though, that are still holding people back from investing in talent management and really implementing some of these best practices and new innovative approaches?
Yeah, so I think skills-based hiring and skills-based talent management is not easy to start. You have to first figure out what is it you're solving for. Really assessing what key skills, roles, capabilities are required for your business and business growth. So we can do a whole podcast on HR and the metrics that matter, but that's a starting point. Most companies don't know that. Hence why jobs are being unfilled because they're not really able to articulate what they need. So really trying to think through the skills that you need to run your business. Then I think the other piece is figuring out, so what is your baseline for your organization? Do those skills exist internally? And then what gaps you have there. Then figure out how you can fill those gaps, whether it's with internal, whether it's with external. Um, because I think understanding the skills you need is not just about attracting talent, it's also about managing your internal talent. I'm so excited that we're moving away from job titles and job descriptions and really deconstructing work into its components. Because I think that's a better way to drive value and also maximize the talent that you have. I think folks challenges are they don't know what skills they need. They don't have a baseline for their organization. But once they get through that, then how do I assess for those skills to make sure I'm picking the right folks? I think it's easier to assess the hard skills, the technical one, but what about the soft skills? How do you create a framework to map experience, I don't know, in a call center to the skill of communication and making that alignment to say, hey, I need these soft skills. If you have this experience, it kind of translates to X. So I think the assessment piece has been, it's a big obstacle for folks. How am I assessing to make sure I'm making the right selection? I think the other thing that I see is a lack of strategy. Let's just throw spaghetti on the wall and kind of test this thing out and figure out where it lands. It's better to start in a focus area. So let's say you're a tech firm and you have a problem finding cyber people. Then start there and build a skills-based strategy around building your cyber pipeline and go from there. Don't try to boil the ocean. That's a recipe for disaster from the beginning.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I see it as cost. Like I look at it at the, let's call it 3,000 or 30,000 view level. And an exec will say there's a cost to it and there's a risk if we don't hire the right thing. So if you're saying, you know, the there's the cost. Okay, well, we're reducing the cost with the way we can educate and develop people. We can identify skills. It's assessing those skills. But then you've mentioned a best practice that you're seeing more and more is that apprenticeship program. So why is an apprenticeship program in the trades important? Because the kid swinging the hammer in the first year of their apprenticeship is right beside and monitored, coached, mentored by someone's swinging the hammer for 30 years and
Mm-hmm.
knows when things are going sideways and can help if it goes sideways. And so having that kind of apprenticeship program in place as well helps not only expedite the learning but also manage the downside risk as well.
Yeah,
So some of
yeah,
these, you're bang on. I love the concept of piloting. Don't
yes,
try to boil the ocean. Pilot, find areas either of high impact or low risk, and then build some of these best practices into those pilots where you're not
right.
only accelerating the learning, and the talent acquisition isn't based on a resume, it's based on skill, and then do some development and then have the mentorship, the apprentice programs, not only to help accelerate, but also catch the downside risk if something was to happen. And they can escalate
Yep.
and quickly fix any problems that someone junior that made a mistake is okay because there's somebody to help with rectifying that mistake
Yeah.
quickly. So I think, it's really important to manage that risk as well, but in the same light, manage the learning, accelerate the learning. But you have to have an organization that's willing to take the risk, right? And make those
Yes.
investments.
And I think also having the right metrics to track from the beginning, because a lot of people are assuming it's risky or it's expensive in the long term, it is not if you're tracking the right metrics. And I think either it was a McKinsey study or it was Multiverse, one of the bigger firms that do apprenticeships, that say companies who are doing a skill-based strategy they're running parallel skill-based and traditional hiring, their skill-based programs have lesser attrition than the traditional hiring programs. So I think it's critical that you also get the right metrics to compare, because you will see that it's probably less risky and less expensive compared to your traditional hiring process. But if you're not measuring, then there's a lot of assumptions and it becomes subjective.
Well, and we mentioned about the skills gaps and the transition to not only developing talent, but also identifying talent with the new innovative technologies and moving away from, let's call it the hierarchical, I have 30 years of experience, so this is the hole I'm being pigeoned into,
Mhm.
to now using either technology or this idea of better skills-based knowledge and seeing adjacent, positions or projects that people with those types of skill sets could take on, even
Right.
though they don't have the position title that traditionally would have been associated with that, but you're identifying applicable skills that can fill adjacent roles. And so
Yeah.
that way you can fill some of those gaps. Like, what are some the practices you're seeing in that space, and or companies starting to utilize in helping implement those type of systems to identify things, or are they changing position titles and totally, right, and saying everybody is junior, senior, intermediate in years or whatever, and everybody has the same position title so that it's more skills based? What are you seeing?
So I haven't seen a firm that moves totally away from titles. I think that's probably in the future, and maybe it does exist. But firms are bundling skills-based hiring and feeding it into their traditional job taxonomy from that standpoint. So they may still have a taxonomy with a title in a description, but they're creating skills that are aligned to those titles. So for example, I may still be, I don't know, a customer service manager. That doesn't change, but what changes is what skills are required to be a customer service manager beyond years of experience, degree, and stuff from along those standpoints. I think we will get to a place where the roles are just skilled and skilled based, but I'm really not seeing that yet. I
Yeah.
believe IBM, and don't quote me on this, I'll verify this and we can include recording, but I think IBM has also moved, or maybe it's McKinsey, moved to skill-based performance review process, from that standpoint. So I think a lot of firms are testing out different ways on how to integrate this to get to the ultimate goal, which is really maximizing the talent they have. But I don't know if there is a flagship way or case study yet that I can comment on.
Oh, it's cool though. And I love the thought around this because, quite honestly, again, if you are able to take some risks and you use either technology or talent management best practices to see applicable skills for various roles, and then you have either apprenticeship programs that can accelerate additional learning on gaps, that this skill that would fit this role, you might still see some gaps. And then you have technology that helps build those, find those gaps as well, and educate through technology and learning management type best practices. You can accelerate people into the new roles and fill some of those gaps. And then having that apprenticeship type and coaching and membership, mentorship type as a backstop, that if everybody's okay with, hey, mistakes happen, but
Mm-hmm.
let's fix them as quickly as possible and react properly to them, and have someone who's been there, done that guide, then guess what? That person that's new to the role just learned what they should and shouldn't do and
Right.
learned the right things to move forward. So it's kind of
Yeah.
interesting. It is future thinking, but this is what we like to talk about, right? Is what we're seeing and talk about some of the solutions we could try to move this forward. And I think technology not only is creating open positions and gaps in the market, it's also helping us accelerate learning and
Yeah.
develop as well. So
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see what the future holds in this market for sure. And as we all know, in the talent acquisition and contingent space, there is, even with kind of an economic slowdown, we're seeing huge still needs in the marketplace because of the demographics that's driving some of this skill gap. Um, and to kind of end things off, and I know we could probably talk more and more about the topic and where we could go, where we're going in the future. But this is a huge topic and there's lots to digest. But I always like to end off the conversation on, okay, what next? So if I'm leading a program, either in talent management or a contingent program, and I want to start to shift the dynamic and start to think about talent management and managing with and developing skills and developing our skills with for our organization to dip into that pool, where do I start? Right? And can you provide some advice?
Yeah, so I would talk about contingent and full-time programs separately, then I'll bring it together. In most organizations, I see the contingent program ahead in the skill
Yeah.
space. So most contingent job descriptions or programs, they also have skills built in. They're recruiting on skills. So I definitely think organizations can learn from their contingent programs on how to kind of marry the two. I also believe that in order to make this work, you really have to have the external workforce and the internal programs work together. So I think of talent as all talent, not the contingent or the full time. So I definitely think a good starting place is maybe trying to figure out what skills do I need for my organizations, and maybe having the contingent and the HR folks talk to one another, because they both may be already working on it, but they haven't really brought their ideas together to solve it holistically for the firm. Um, and I know we haven't talked a lot about how the contingent fits into this, but I think a lot of contingent programs feed into the full-time program, so they're a pipeline for talent all already. So it's critical that you all both programs are working from a consistent taxonomy and skill base, because when you go to convert, then you might have challenges like I have a project manager here, but internally it's something else. So having consistency across the board is great. But I really think I would say small steps lead to big steps. Don't try to solve the big ocean. Pick an area that is critical for your firm. It could be sales reps in a pharmaceutical company. It could be customer service reps in another company. Pick a skills base where you're struggling to fill right now, then work across programs to develop a baseline and universal taxonomy, and then create those journey maps that we talked about prior. I think once you get a win in one space, you can translate those best practices to other areas in the company. Also, if the company is a little apprehensive about this new thing, starting small will be a good way to get traction in order to move forward. The one thing I would end with, because I'm big on habits and mindset, I'd say it's the small, boring things you do every day that leads to exponential growth in the future. So don't wait for the massive fireworks. See the little sparklers. Don't miss the little sparklers you get every day, because you may not get the fireworks show. It may be little sparkles every day. And if you miss on that, you may think I'm making no progress, but you probably are.
And that's so true. And, personally, but I often, hear others that look back on a year and go, what a difference a year makes. And it's often that little progress here, little progress there that leads to, man, I actually did achieve a lot in that year because we did step by step and move some things forward. And I also love the advice on pilots, the idea of pick an area, focus on it either because of impact or from, it's less risky to try new things, and then it shows that it proves that it is making impact and you can relate it across. It's
Right.
awesome. So Ceaneh, I can't thank you enough for your time today and sharing your wisdom and knowledge. to the group on this because it is, it is such an important topic and it needs to be focused on within organizations. And it actually will have a huge ROI if there's a strategic focus on something like this versus the, hey, we're just gonna always be on a hamster wheel of trying to, find new talent, as opposed to let's develop and build talent and skills of people within not only our current employee base, but also, engage and work with external talent that you can bring in and out of organization when you need it as well. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. I think it's been a phenomenal discussion. I'm excited about the advancements in this space. And I think I personally believe, I don't think the gap is as big as we think it is, because I think there's a lot of underutilized workforce that we can maximize if we just kind of step back and kind of figure out what is it we have before we start to look for more. But it's been a great discussion. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, thanks again. Talk soon.